Yesterday, Adam Silver had his press conference announcing that the Board of Governors have approved the process to open expansion bids for only Seattle and Vegas. And let's hear what he had to say about it.
The board voted to explore expansion in Las Vegas and Seattle. I'm excited about that opportunity. We've had discussions with elected officials, both in Las Vegas and Seattle and Nevada and the state of Washington.
So let's stop there because there's a lot to unpack just right there, right? We have heard for years from Adam Silver that we are not ready for expansion, that we have to wait for the TV deal, the collective bargaining agreement, or wait for the Celtics sale, or wait for this, or wait for that, or we don't have an arena, depending on how far back you want to go. Now, none of those clarifiers or those obstacles are in place. Adam Silver saying, hey, you know what? We are moving forward with proceeding with expansion and working with local officials. Local officials did not cooperate with the Sonics ownership when they moved in 2008. This time it's very different. Governor Bob Ferguson is in favor. Katie Wilson, Seattle mayor, who when she was elected, she's more progressive, and there was maybe some concern that she wouldn't be as pro-Sonics as Bruce Harrell, although pro-Sonics taking a form that doesn't involve like ridiculously out of touch, tone deaf jokes about the return of the Sonics. So we got the good, but not of the bad. She's in favor. She just came out today, and we got that information. So we have now support for this return of this team in a way that did not exist before. And I know it sounds frustrating for fans to hear the NBA say, okay, this is a procedural vote. And they're like, great. You have concepts of a plan or plans to have plans. And this is just more word salad. And it is not. This is a meaningful, distinct step.
Yeah, I think the elected officials, specifically what you were saying about Katie Wilson, I saw some things on social media. She posted a video with students, I think at Rainier Beach High School, showing her support. And then obviously we got the news this morning that she was meeting about the Sonics. So I think that the clear show of support from public officials is kind of a big deal here. Especially when we do have to have a little bit of expectations. It's not a done deal. It is a procedural vote, but it is still very much a step in the right direction.
Right. So we really want to be careful here. And while I fully believe that the Sonics will return, that the NBA expansion will occur, and Seattle will be awarded a team, there is a lot that still has to happen in order for that to occur, in order for the Sonics to be tipping off at the start of 2028, which is the current schedule that has been indicated. Now, interestingly enough, bids are open only to Seattle and Vegas. And Adam Silver talked about this, and I think that there's really interesting reading between the lines here. So we're going to play a couple of clips, and then we're going to tell you why that's important.
There weren't concerns. I will say, in a way, we're in a good situation because there are some owners who felt that we just frankly don't need to expand. So they didn't necessarily see concern with going forward, but we felt we're in a very solid place with the 30-team league we have now. I think they're Seattle and Las Vegas, in terms of their history and support of NBA basketball, are unique in terms of available markets in the U.S. right now. No knock on any other markets. Those are just the markets we're focused on. So as I said earlier, there's some other amazing markets out there that could potentially support NBA basketball. The focus this time around was on these two particular markets. And again, I think because of our longtime history in Seattle, the fact that we have the Storm and the great success in Seattle, in Las Vegas, 20 years plus, Summer League there, great success with WNBA Aces in Las Vegas. That's why we were focused on these markets at this time.
Pretty interesting, right? You have this expansion process that has been talked about for almost 2 decades at this point. And then when it comes to it, you're like, wait, you know what? We're not going to look at Kansas City. We're not going to look at Nashville. We're not going to look at Quebec City. We're not going to look at, whoever. Only Seattle and and San Diego. Yeah. Only Seattle and Vegas. And there's a reason for that. First of all, I think that these are just the most viable markets. And I haven't done a deep dive on the Vegas market and what that looks like, but I can tell you Seattle with Amazon, I think Amazon is like 36 times the size it was when the Sonics left. It's like really, really somewhere. It's in the 30s, like 30x. And Amazon was big when the Sonics left the first time, but Seattle is huge, right? And Seattle is ready. That's the thing that we have the fans, right? They don't have to come in and try to introduce basketball to a market that has not had basketball, right? Seattle has basketball. We have basketball still with the Storm, and we have college and high school basketball. We a number 1 overall pick in the NBA from the area. There's still NBA talent being, created from this area. It's a strong basketball place. We have the legacy. Right, we have the legacy of the Supersonics. We have the legacy of strong basketball report, and we have the arena, which is the big thing, right? If you don't have an arena, then nothing matters. Arenas are the reason why teams move. It's the reason why teams come back. And Climate Pledge Arena is fully NBA ready. It does not require any taxpayer dollars to be ready for the NBA. It was built with the NBA in mind. It is a gorgeous $1.15 billion fully privately renovated arena. And we have the owners. So Samantha Holloway, who is the owner of the Seattle Kraken, now has created an umbrella company that includes the Kraken and what would be an NBA team should one be awarded to Seattle, among other things as well. But the ownership is stable. We don't have to worry about it's not a crypto billionaire, trying to buy the team, or someone with some shady past. This is a well-respected owner. Her father, the late David Bonderman, was a minority owner of the Celtics, so they already have a relationship with the NBA. Kraken and presumed Sonic CEO Todd Lewicki has a relationship with the NBA. This is just a really well set up city, and this is a great time for Seattle sports. Right? I mean, the Seahawks just won the Super Bowl. The Mariners 1 game away from the World Series, and on and on and on, and all of the success. And the Sonics now get to be part of that. And I think the NBA is looking at that, and they see all the money, they see all the dollars, and they see the sign, they see the signs, they see the fans, they see the legacy, they see the owners, they see the arena, they see what Seattle is all about, and they say, you know what? We want to take bids from those guys.
I think there's a long tradition of great success as a sports city. And I think that question is kind of a lot better answered in Seattle than any other market. If this were a situation where they were considering other markets other than Las Vegas or Seattle, you could ask a lot of questions about, can this city support an NBA team, or do they support all the other sports in their towns in those markets that keep saying that they want an NBA team, your San Diegos, your Vancouvers, your Kansas Cities. And it's provable that Seattle fans show up in good times and bad. And so I think that's pretty well proven that we can support yet another pro sports team of this caliber.
I mean, Kraken games are sold out, Torrent games. The attendance is always great there. The Mariners have done well, even though they haven't had a lot of success. The Seahawks, even when they were down and not good pre-Pete Carroll, they were all well attended. Seattle is a really, really great sports town. And also, I do want to reiterate, because sometimes it's easy to forget that not everyone has been here for decades and decades and didn't live through this, is that the Sonics didn't move because of poor fan support. It wasn't like the building was empty and the owner looked around and said, oh man, Seattle is just not a market for me, and maybe we can do someplace else and get better ticket sales. That was just not the case here. If you want to go into the long, sad saga of it, if you just search on YouTube Sonics Gate, it's a long, like 2-hour documentary, pretty comprehensive, and it is absolutely heartbreaking. One thing that Adam Silver said that I found really curious was he mentioned multiple bidders, and I have some real side eye about that one.
What does the city of Seattle have to do to prove itself in this process? And do you expect multiple bidders, whether it's in Seattle or Las Vegas?
I do expect that there will be multiple bidders, and I don't think it's about anything specific that the city of Seattle needs to do. As you say, we have strong business partners there. I travel there frequently. The Storm have had great success in Seattle. It's just a wonderful market. And on top of that, enormous economic growth around technology. I think it has more to do with who comes forward as the potential owner, understanding the arena situation, understanding the economics, because putting aside what somebody is willing to pay for the franchise, we want to make sure they're in a position to be successful. And whether that means sharing a building, with the hockey team or whatever arrangement is put forward, that's what I meant before. When our team owners are, on one hand, they're compete like crazy on the court, but then they're all partners. And I think part of the issues we'll be looking at is, will we be putting a team in position to be successful in Seattle? I mean, I see no reason standing here today why that shouldn't be the case, but we're going to work through this process.
So two things. First, I think the language by Adam Silver is consistent, like, yeah, we have no issues with Seattle. We don't think there's going to be an issue. We just think Seattle's a strong market. But also, multiple bidders, Jolie?
I found that especially interesting as well. And I kind of wonder if he had maybe Las Vegas in mind when he said that, but also you and I have heard really wild and unsubstantiated rumors about perhaps there were other people that were going to place a bid, or perhaps somebody else was going to put together an ownership group. And of course, I haven't seen any substantiation of any of that, but it's an interesting question.
I think you're right. I think that this is probably referring more to Vegas, where there is not a clear ownership group. They don't have an arena that's settled. It may be at T-Mobile Arena. It may be at two proposed arena sites. We don't know. We don't know who's going to own it. There was like talk that LeBron James was interested, and then he said he's not interested. And then Magic Johnson, he's interested. And so we will see about that. But in Seattle, there is no, there's no realistic option other than the Samantha Holloway group that owns the Kraken, because they are the majority owners of Climate Pledge Arena. They are the primary tenant. And if another team wants, or if another owner wants to operate an NBA team here, then they would need to have an arena. And longtime Seattle residents may remember the wars that were occurring over the construction of an arena in Soto versus the renovation of Key Arena, which is now Climate Pledge Arena. And if you want to go to sonicsrising.com, that's an old Sonics blog that was operated by our friend Brian Robinson, who's a big part of the Seattle Sonics fabric. If you're really interested, you can, but there's no, how are you going to build an arena that's not Climate Pledge Arena? And with all of the connections and the success and the hockey team and the money and the intentionality behind it, I don't see how there's anybody in Seattle other than the one group that could even possibly make a bid. And incidentally, this is something that was also reported by Chris Daniels a few days ago, that they were expecting multiple bidders from Seattle. But I assume that's not actually real news.
It would seem unlikely, especially given the fact that any bidders would have to now deal with being a tenant of somebody else's arena, or else would have to put up the money to build their own, in which case I don't see that happening anytime soon.
No, I think there is a better chance that I'm the starting point guard of the Seattle Supersonics when they return than there is they build an arena separately for a separate ownership group.
Must be working on your jump shot.
No, I'm terrible at basketball. I'm really, really bad. I'm 5'4", but still, maybe I can, dish to, I don't know, whoever's going to be the Julian Strother or somebody. I don't know. We'll have to talk expansion draft in, a later point, much later point. One thing that Adam Silver did mention was the expansion fee, and that has not been set. Initially, Shams Charania did report that it was be in the $7 to $10 billion range, and Adam Silver was asked about this.
And I'm not going to speculate on prices. I mean, those are, people could look at, obviously, as you said, the Celtic sale. I don't think you mentioned the Lakers sale at $10 billion, but the market will determine the value of this team and then of these teams, and then we will decide whether that makes sense to move forward. But I anticipate there'll be a robust interest.
Todd Lewicki, the CEO of the Kraken / Sonics, the Chronics. I don't know, what are we calling them? I guess they're under the One Roof Sports Entertainment, so ORS. ORS, yeah. It's like if you take a dead horse, you beat the H out of it. I don't know. I'm workshopping here. They seemed unbothered by any potential $7 to $10 billion expansion fee. It did not seem like this was something that seemed to be an obstacle, and it indicated that they would make a strong bid. And they're ready, because it seems like everyone's ready. Seattle's ready. The Kraken hockey partners are ready. The ORS is ready. So it does seem like full speed ahead, right? And while we are not getting promises from the NBA, Adam Silver has indicated that there are no internal obstacles or objections or scenarios that they can see where Seattle does not get an NBA team. That's what he's hinting at. Now, there is a caveat, which is that we live in a crazy, mixed up, terrible, chaotic, terrible, awful, terrible world with terrible things happening and terrible people that are terrible. And Adam Silver, he talked about that.
There's absolutely a chance expansion may not happen, and that's why we were careful to say exploring the process. And it's also possible that we could expand to one market and not two, to 2 or 0 markets. That's sort of what's on the table right now. As to why it might not happen, at least standing here today, there's nothing that I see in the relatively short-term future of this league that would indicate in any way that there won't be enormous interest in those markets and that the board will continue to support moving forward. I should say at the right time, it will require 3/4 of the owners supporting it, but we wouldn't be moving into this step. And in fairness to parties that are interested, was one of the reasons why we wanted to make this formal announcement, because wherever those values land, it's an enormous undertaking. It's generally not just a single owner. It's a group. It requires financing. It requires arena planning, et cetera. So where the uncertainty to me lies is in issues outside of the league, that there's enormous instability in the world at the moment, and we may ultimately conclude, for reasons completely out of our control, that it's not the right time to expand, that it's something that we should postpone and relook at some later time.
Also, I found it pretty interesting that he said that it could be 1 or 2 teams or no teams. One team, maybe Vegas doesn't get their stuff together, and we don't have to wait. We don't have to wait for Vegas to figure their stuff out. It's not gated on that. You can do asynchronous expansion. It's what the NHL did. Vegas in 2017, Seattle in 2021. So, but yeah, it's not a done deal. And the reason why it's not a done deal is that this is a transaction of many billions of dollars, and a lot has to happen in order to conduct a $7 to $10 billion transaction, if that's what the price is. And there's a war going on, and there's economic instability, and who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah, that gives me a lot of pause. Of course, that was the thing that sort of made my chest clench a little bit, because of how that's a truism, and it's sad that we have to say that out loud. And yet I think it's kind of a realistic expectation of, we don't know what's going to happen in the next couple of years. And if something really terrible happens, I'm sure he wants to put it out there as like I wish I didn't have to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway, that there is tremendous instability, and that could affect ultimately the decision to expand.
So while it feels very tempting to say the Sonics are definitely coming back, I think we should pump the brakes a little bit and say it looks very good that the Sonics are very likely to come back, and all of the stuff that the NBA has put up in terms of obstacles or we're not ready does not seem to be the case anymore. The NBA seems ready. Seattle's ready. Everyone seems ready. So now let's move forward, and let's just hope the rest of the world doesn't screw it up.
Because it will be their fault.
It will be their fault. But you did some looking at the reactions to the announcement. Also, the most exciting procedural vote ever. Is that? I mean, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think about this in line of like I don't know what a city comptroller votes on, but it would seem that it would be on par with that, and yet we are so excited about it, and there's palpable excitement in the air in the city of Seattle about a procedural vote.
Ooh.
But I think we're all so ready for some good news. So I did some digging into social media to sort of see what the fan reactions were and how people feel about this expansion, both in the city of Seattle and more broadly. And I saw some interesting patterns. And so I was going to go through some of those with you, and we were going to kind of react to what the rest of the world is reacting to. So let's start with this perception that Seattle as a city sucks. It's somehow check the attendance numbers for the years 2000 through 2005. Nobody cares about the NBA. Stop fake hype. Our city and state are poorly managed. And Seattle is a crap hole. And I know I've heard this before. And I think there's this weird perception about the city of Seattle that exists outside of Seattle or the greater Seattle area that I think is really confusing and I think is worth mentioning here as two people who live and work in the greater Seattle area and have been here for many years. You and I both know that this is actually it's a pretty cool city to live in. It's beautiful. It's has great weather some of the time. A lot of, there's business, there's industry, there's architecture. And there is somehow this perception that Seattle is a terrible, rundown hellhole of a city. And I don't want to speculate on where that comes from, but I know it's out there. And I would really like to dispel that rumor because
think
I
a
don't
lot of
find
it-
it to be true.
I think a lot of it came from the Chaz Chop stuff in 2020, and then it was like, they've lost control of Seattle, and now it's just Lord of the Flies here. I was thinking about this as I was driving across the wastelands, and I was fighting off marauding raiders to get to the grocery store for asparagus. That the perception of Seattle is so skewed. It's just bizarre to me because Seattle's a beautiful city. It's not on fire. You go down. I just if you didn't know the history, it would be really hard to understand where this is coming from. People act as if The Last of Us season 2, which is set in Seattle, in post-apocalyptic Seattle, and it's all just dilapidated and all the buildings are decrepit, and it's a wasteland, and there's crime and lawlessness, and they just assume oh well, they didn't have to do anything, they just got to film on location, and that's it. And Seattle's great. It's a beautiful city. It's a awesome city. It's a not on fire city. It is not a dilapidated city. It is one of the greatest cities in the world and the largest American market without an NBA team. Also, nobody follows the NBA. You sure about that, buddy?
Yeah.
Follow the NBA to me.
I think there was a lot of weird NBA specific reactions that happened because this was another kind of comment that I saw floating around on social media. Who cares? The NBA is atrocious. And you and I have talked about this a lot about people's problems with tanking and flopping and the load management question and the way that there are too many threes and this general idea that basketball is unwatchable. So who's going to care? Who in Seattle is going to care anymore because the game is different? And I don't think that that's true. And I would be interested to hear your take.
People get really mad about traveling. It's like a thing that this is oh, he took 2 extra steps, is ruining the game. It's like an affront, personally offensive. Look, I sympathize with those who stopped watching the NBA when the Sonics left because they were upset with the league. I stopped watching the NBA for a while when the Sonics left as well because I was so disenchanted. The NBA has undergone significant changes in the way that rosters are constructed, skill sets, players, the way the game is played, even the rules. Some of the rules are different. Rule enforcement's different. And I understand how someone then coming back to basketball and watching the modern game, which is so different and so much more complicated and so much more punishing if a player makes a small mistake, that it can seem like no defense is being played because players are so good that if you make a defensive mistake, they can quickly create a situation that is advantageous to the player with the ball. But the game itself is better than it's ever been. There is more diversity of play. It's not just like, oh, it's all threes. Also, that's not even, that was like more true a few years ago when they realized like, oh, shooting threes is more efficient than shooting twos. Like you don't have to hit at nearly as high rate. Like three is more than two. But now like the mid-range two is coming back because teams have adjusted, and so it's creating. So there's this really complex system, this metagame that's evolving, and basketball is great. And if these curmudgeons are just going to say like, before it even gets here, I'm not even going to give it a chance because it sucks, it's bad. I don't watch it, but I know it's bad. It's like I don't like giving those people oxygen, and I don't think we need these Debbie Downers for something that is going to be hopefully the most joyous moment in the history of Seattle sports.
I think you and I are probably in the same boat in that we would probably bet a lot of money on if we bring basketball to the curmudgeons who feel like basketball is a terrible product and nobody wants to watch basketball anymore. It's unwatchable. That we could make them a promise that basketball is more competitive than it's been, perhaps. And it is a very highly competitive, highly exciting game now. It's just different. But that doesn't make it any less exciting or any less competitive.
Yeah, I think people also say it's soft, and they think like basketball means hard fouls or just, and it's like, I go back, watch. Here's what I say to those who are skeptical about the modern game. Watch a modern game. Just watch a game that happens this year and take a note of it and note where the players are and where they're spaced. And then go back and go on YouTube and find a full game, not highlights, but a full game from the 90s. And what you will see is a bunch of people standing around to the paint and taking terrible contested jump shots that clank off the rim. It's not very watchable basketball. The highlights are great because you get to cut out all of the chaff. But the 90s game, like if you go back and you watch a game, it is painful to watch. It's just like what's with the spacing, man? So basketball is awesome, and if you are giving up on it before you even give it a chance, then you know what? I'm just gonna say it. I'm calling you a curmudgeon. Yeah, you got the curmudgeon badge. Now you got to wear it.
You're hearing it here first.
You're hearing it first.
You're
Yep.
calling the shot. Along that same vein, one of the things that I love about this city so much is its long memory of shade. And we remember who our enemies are. And so one of the things I loved reading in the comment sections is shade about how Seattle was wronged. So things like, Sonics should have never left. This doesn't change that Clay Bennett, David Stern, and Howard Schultz screwed over Seattle 2 decades ago. And also in reference to the recent news that Howard Schultz is moving out of Washington, I believe, right? Full stop. We get rid of Howard Schultz and we get the Sonics back. Too much winning. I really don't blame people for having long memories and remembering who wronged them. In this case, I support it. I'll support it.
Howard Schultz from Seattle, then he had a presidential run a couple of years ago and he got no support from his hometown. He's not a well-liked person here.
Not a well-liked person. Similarly with how people still really, really hate David Stern, which,
Yeah.
No reason to hate him anymore, but we still do. So
Yeah, when he died, it was like everyone else was like, yeah, normal stuff. It was like, he was a good man, or he did these things, he did that. And then the Seattle people were less gracious, which is a little uncharacteristic because they're not usually vicious, but they're like, nope, not forgiving him. And I hope that a lot of this bitterness and anger is a function of not willing to believe until it actually happens. And when the Sonics actually show up and they actually start playing, and there's a game, and they're games to talk about, and it's no longer discussion about will they come, won't they come, where will they play, who's going to own it, what's the expansion fee, what's the expansion draft going to look like, what are the uniform, right? When there are actually games being played, I think it will be a lot harder for these curmudgeons to hold on to that anger and being like, you know what, I don't care about the Sonics, and like, they beat the Suns by 4 points the other night. That's wow, they're 4-2. But yeah, but it's flopping, and oh wow, that young draft pick is pretty exciting. And so
yeah,
we I think there's some defense mechanisms that will be no longer necessary if and when the Sonics do resume play here in Seattle.
right. The team itself will act as a very nice salve for those generational burns that have happened. I did see quite a lot of reaction online showing that people were generally, in a majority of the cases, it seemed like, just really, really supportive about having a new team in the NBA. We saw comments like, I'm a Sixers fan, but the Mariners made a deep pennant run. Seahawks just won the Super Bowl, and now the Sonics are coming back, or congrats, Seattle, we missed you. I like the dig of Vegas, whatevs. But yeah, there was a lot of support out there from people all over, not just in the Seattle area. And I think that is kind of a function of people understand what an opportunity this is to shake up the league, to reignite old rivalries, to see even more competitive basketball. And I was really heartened to see a lot of that.
What do you think the international response will be to the expansion? So, for example, as a contrast, you and I, we own Davy Jones' Locker Room, which is covering the Seattle Kraken, the NHL team. And they came as an expansion team in a market that was not hockey crazed because their beloved team moved 2 decades ago. And it served as a baseline for, okay, here's what an expansion team looks like. Here's how a new market adapts to the team. And it's largely a local story. I get a strong sense that this is not a local story exclusively, but
not at all. Not at all.
Yeah. How big do you think this gets?
I think it is a much bigger story than I think that is normally being acknowledged. There are fans and fan accounts from all over the world. A lot of fans in Europe. I did see comments from places like France and Germany saying, I've been a lifelong Sonics fan. Clearly, the message of this team has traveled overseas. It is not a localized story. And more than just the greater Seattle area or even the Washington area is going to celebrate the return of this franchise. So it's less local than you might think. And I think you're going to see a lot more support worldwide than you might think.
I think we're going to get like some like real big names, some like major pop stars. And I mean, I don't know if Beyonce would wear a Sonics jersey to a concert, but it's that kind of thing.
I mean, being from Houston, that's
okay.
It's going to be a hard sell, probably.
Yeah. Right.
But you never know.
You never know.
I did really enjoy the some of the storylines that people are excited about in coming up. If there is a Sonics team, the drama starts right away. There is a perceived day one rivalry with Oklahoma City, which I think is probably a pretty safe assumption. I did see that comment quite a lot, and I did see this comment quite a lot. Everybody wants Kevin Durant to end his career in Seattle. Everybody wants him to come back, and I believe he has actually said himself something to that effect about how he would like to come back to Seattle. So I think people understand the drama is built in. So it's not going to be a boring thing from day one. There's going to be plenty of drama to talk about, even before we know what the entire roster is going to look like.
Also, his contract situation lines up perfectly with it. So
Yep.
it's very plausible that he would be the elder statesman to bring back the Sonics, the team that he played his rookie year for, and then went on to have one of the greatest careers in NBA history elsewhere.
And then just happens to enter free agency right before what would presumably be the time when there would be an expansion draft. So
he's fun, man. I know some people really don't like him, but I think he's really funny. And I love how online he is and how he does not care about what people think of him in this regard. And he's a great quote. He's really funny. Really still a really good player. I really like watching him play, and I like his game. And that would be just the cherry on the top of the Sonic Sunday to bring Kevin Durant. I suppose Russell Westbrook is probably too old. I don't know if he's going to be a good NBA player or viable NBA player in 2 years, but that's the other one that, he was drafted by the Sonics and then they moved that summer. So he never played, but Durant and Westbrook, I don't know, maybe we can run it back.
Or there's going to be also plenty of opportunities to bring back key players should they want to in maybe some front office roles. So you never know. I mean, the story, it's a good story. If you bring back you play the hits, it's always going to be a good story. So the fans would probably support it. People would really love to see it. One of the things you mentioned before was specifically which celebrities are going to support a Sonics team. And I did see a video put out yesterday on social media. Ice Cube is firmly in support of a team in Seattle. And genuinely, the best comment I saw, Lakers beat the Supersonics will no longer be an outdated lyric. And I have been saying this for years, that if nothing else, if today is truly a good day, maybe one day the Lakers will beat the Supersonics again. So
the Sonics come back and they lose to the Lakers. Yeah. You know what? That's a good day. Well, that does it for today's episode. We will be back as news happens and also to tell the incredible story of the Sonics return, should they do, in fact, return. This is not just a procedural thing. This is not just an ordinary sports story. This is the healing of a city that has been suffering and bleeding for almost 2 decades. And there are so many stories that people we have talked to, and there's so much hurt and there's so much passion and there's so much joy and so much enthusiasm. And we look forward to bringing those stories to you and telling you everything you need to know as we engage on this journey towards what we hope is the greatest redemption in sports that I could ever remember. For Rain City Rebound, I'm Zaiem.
I'm Jolie Simons.
We'll see you next time.